Yo, you guys, this is Blacklist of the Abyss, and you're watching my review for Taboo Tattoo Episode 3. Okay, and this episode starts off with Toko seeing the memories of the blonde girl whose name actually ends up being Iltutmish. Okay, Laka, R.R. Laka, the Behemoth Viper, he calls her Eel as a nickname. I'm going to call her Mish instead because I want to, and I like that name better. So I'm calling her Mish. All right. Now, these memories show that she grew up in the slums. She met Aryabhata. She tried to take food from her by killing her because Aryabhata said, "I'll only give it to you if you lick my boots," pretty much. So Mish, her response to this was to try and kill her for it instead. Aryabhata's response to being attacked, I won't say almost killed because she wasn't almost killed. She stopped her pretty easily. Her response to this was to kiss her, sexually assault her by groping her, and then invite her to join the Brahman. So I don't really know what the point of that was. I'm assuming it might have something to do with Aryabhata's abilities, like her tattoo or something. I like to think that she doesn't just go around sexually assaulting people for the heck of it. I like to think there's some reason for that. So the only thing I could think of is that it's some type of thing with her tattoo, like maybe her tattoo has abilities that can strengthen the abilities of others or something, and like through direct contact. I don't know. I'm literally just trying to make sense of something that doesn't make sense. Okay, but whatever. Some people said that this scene was lame because it was meant to make you sympathize with Mish, even though she's a killer and can't be sympathized with. My response to that is this scene isn't meant to get you to sympathize with her. She's a killer. You're not going to sympathize with her. Like, it's, use logic here. At no point in this episode or last episode was there any attempt made to make you feel bad for Mish in any way. There's one scene in this episode later on that's arguable where you could maybe make that assumption, but my assumption in that scene is something completely different. I think it's meant as foreshadowing instead, the scene with the cats, but I'll get there later. Um, I think the scene was there to show you that she's a born killer. She was on her own since she was, I mean, she's a child right now, but when she was an even younger child, she was already on her own killing people for what she needs to survive. And I think that this scene was meant solely to show you that she's incredibly skilled. She was incredibly skilled at what she does at a young age, and now that, and she's still young, but she's older now, and she's even better than she was before. That's the point of this scene, to show you how good Mish is. All right. But we end up learning that Mish's power is in fact possession, so she can't fight. It's not control, so she can't fight someone 2-on-1 with both herself and the person she's controlling, because she's literally inside the mind of the person she's possessing. Um, and the sign of her controlling someone is a tattoo, is her own tattoo appearing on that person's forehead. Okay, which ends up coming up later. But Toko ends up attacking Seigi. It turns out that the cardboard box has blood bags in it, so that Seigi can activate his tattoo. But a good move on Mish's part. She has Toko kick the box down the stairs before Seigi can get to it. All right, so that was a good move on her part. Though Seigi he ended up just using the Tom's blood that was on the umbrella, because he got stabbed by the umbrella last episode. He used Tom's blood on the umbrella and grabbed it in order to activate his tattoo. However, he can't control the force that he gets, because when you activate a tattoo, when you enter your drive mode, as it's called apparently, your base stats all go up. But Seigi isn't used to the increase in strength, so he put too much power into his jump back, and he ended up ramming himself right into the wall. Okay, and Mish was about to kill him. She already stabbed him once through the shoulder. All right, but she was about to kill him, but Toko fought back in her mind, because they actually show Toko and Mish next to each other in Toko's mind, and then she fights back pretty much. She fights back, and Seigi takes advantage of the situation to pin Toko down, And that's when Tom reaches his pack of cigarettes and uses them to activate his tattoo, and he literally pulls Mish out of Toko's body. If any of you have seen Pain's Invasion in Naruto, you know that the one pain, the one pain, because all the pains have the Rinnegan, right? And one of the abilities of the Rinnegan is to be able to pull a person's soul out of their body. One of the pains did this to Shizune, and a couple other people. You can probably see it in the 6th opening for Naruto Shippuden as well. It looked exactly like this. He literally put his hand on her head and then just pulled Mish out like he was pulling a soul out of Toko's body. Okay, so it was actually kind of cool. But anyway, this was where things got interesting. Okay, so, because Mish attacks Tom because he's talking too much, acting like he's this awesome dude who can fight well, and we already know, because as he told us, we already know he's not a good fighter. So Mish is about to kill him. I love the directing here, the camera angles and everything. The way we say, I love this scene. Seigi pulls Tom out of the way and then stops the sword with his palm. Sword literally goes through his palm. Well, I don't know how far through his palm it went because we didn't see the other side of his hand, but it goes into his palm, and he stops the sword that way, and that's when we see the injury on his arm, on his shoulder, start to heal. So I guess a side effect of his tattoo is being able to heal injuries. I don't know if this is just the triggerless tattoo itself that is able to do this, or if all tattoos to an extent are able to heal injuries, but at the very least, the triggerless tattoo can. Alright, under certain circumstances, because I don't know what exactly the conditions are for this activating, but we know that this at least is an ability that can be activated at some point, okay, because we saw it happen here. Now, Seigi he's angry. He is very, very angry. It was great to watch because I personally love watching characters go berserk. I love Naruto in QB mode with growing tails, 4 tails, 6 tails, 8 tails. I love that. I love Ichigo entering horned hollow mode. I love what's another example? Rosario Vampire. What's another? Siren. Okay, I love when characters go berserk. Well, I don't read Berserk because hiatuses, and I don't want to read a series that has hiatuses, even though it's really good and I know I should read it. But anyway, I don't know if Berserk has people going berserk. Probably. Well, I don't know. The point is, I like it when characters go berserk. Okay, so Seigi is pretty much going berserk here. He activates the Void Maker, even though Tom told him not to, and he's essentially losing control because he's angry about what happened to Toko. He just enters his blind rage again, like Naruto in Pain's Invasion when he not the got stabbed. Just enters a blind rage and he activates Void Maker, and he's about to kill pretty much everyone there. But Toko pulls him, and Void misses everyone and destroys the building for the most part. And then Mish ends up getting away. And then as Mish is getting away, that's when Izzy shows up because she had been fighting against R.R. Laka. She managed to make it outside and make it into a lower floor in the building where she could get chalk, activate her tattoo, throw up a grenade pretty much to distract Laka, while she ended up leaving and escaping and retreating back to the house. Okay. So yeah, Izzy gets back after Mish leaves. Mish is she's told by Laka to just retreat because she can't beat Izzy. So we're starting to figure out what the rankings are here so far from the people we've seen. You could assume that Aryabata is somewhere up there, but we know that Izzy is up here. Laka is, let's say, pretty close to Izzy, but maybe, let's say, a little bit below. And then Mish is below that. Then Seigi's like down here, and then Tom is like off the screen. Okay, so that's where we've got what we've got so far. I want to see Aryabata fight so much. I want to, but we're probably not going to see it till like the very, because she's like the boss, right? She's the boss of this game, pretty much. So hopefully we get at least a demonstration of her ability when she just dominates some people at some point, like maybe like episode 6 or 7, like around there. That I feel like that would be the timing of it, if we get a demonstration of her ability before the final fight of the series, where we actually get to see her fight. But those are kind of the rankings so far. after all of this, they end up referring to Izzy and Tom and Seigi. They explain everything to Toko, which is good because that's one cliche that's avoided. The whole main character is busy saving the world, but the jealous love interest feels like she's being wronged because he's not spending time with her, and she gets angry at him for keeping secrets, and it's just a mess. I can't stand when anime use that stereotype. It's like dude saving the world, relax. All right, you aren't entitled to every little thing that's going on in his life. Okay, just chill. All right, like I can't stand. That's one of the cliches I can't stand. So I'm glad they avoided that one, though. They did end up doing another cliche later on, but I'll get to that later. Um, Toko is essentially sitting there. The mark on her head hasn't gone away. She's sitting there watching Seigi and Izzy spar. The bunny is also there watching. So I'm really starting to like this bunny. This bunny, it's just, I don't know what it is. It's just funny. I just find it funny that they have a pet bunny. Um, but anyway, Izzy ends up winning against Seigi as usual. She compliments him, saying that he's pretty athletic, and because of that, he's capable of fighting with his tattoo activated for a longer period of time than a regular beginner would be able to. Again, like I said before, that's drive mode. When you're in drive, it's when you're fighting with your tattoo activated. But at the same time, though, she criticizes him because he only uses throws, which just makes things very predictable. Um, but later they end up getting into the fact that Toko's tattoo on the forehead hasn't gone away. I'm assuming that the tattoo not going away means that Mish is capable of reactivating her possession, I guess, whenever she's in range, possibly without needing her trigger. I'm not really sure about that one, but it has to do with the tattoo staying there has to be a type of marking that allows her to use her ability. It has to. But there has to be some advantage to keeping it there. So I guess she can activate it without, grabbing the person's forehead and, having these chains dangling. It has to be something like that, right? So, um, but anyway, we get an explanation from Tom about how his tattoo works, because he was talking about how he couldn't remove her tattoo from her forehead, so they just decided to cover it up. But in the process, he explained that he can actually remove his tattoo because his tattoo is a copy. It's not one of the original tattoos. And in the tattoo copies, they are a byproduct, according to him, this is a quote, a byproduct of the research process that resulted in the original tattoos. So essentially what that means is there was some type of, these original tattoos were created a long time ago, and I guess these tattoo copies were maybe an accident, like or failures, and the original tattoo, no, but because they're copies, that doesn't. I don't know what they didn't really explain anything. This explanation of the copies aren't. It's not really an explanation at all. It just all it tells you is that they were created by some type of process, but it doesn't tell you anything about that process. Right? So it's not really much of an explanation. The only real point in introducing copies here is to just introduce the idea that people who have copies can remove their tattoo if they want to, which means you can't actually notice that. You can't point it on the ground and say, "Oh, look, this person has a tattoo on their hand." You can't they can remove it if they want to, and that makes it easier for them to blend in. So I mean, if the U.S. Army has methods to cover up tattoos, I'm sure Selenistan does too. So there's no need to send in people with copies just to have them blend in. But also the other reason for introducing copies is because the abilities are different. Instead of having their own unique powers, the copies are only capable of negating the effects of supernatural phenomena. Um, that's an interesting choice of words. They could have just said that they're capable of negating the effects of tattoos, but they said supernatural phenomena, which means that there may be some other type of supernatural phenomena besides tattoos. So I just want to leave that path open. I don't think they'll get into that. I don't think they'll do something like that. I think this is just some fancy wording, some fancy official type wording, but I just wanted to say it anyway, just in case it ends up happening, then I can go back and say, "See, I told you so. I was right," But yeah, so that explains not, I mean, it doesn't really explain the copies, but it explains a little bit of the copies. All right. They were also saying how they don't understand why Mish's tattoo is still on Toko's forehead. My thinking is that it has my thinking my thinking is that this has something to do with the fact that Selena Stan. This is just another reference to Selena Stan knowing more about tattoos and them not knowing about tattoos, so then they can bring up Selena Stan can have all these tattoos that do all these crazy things, and they can be used as plot twists because the U.S. Army doesn't know about them. Therefore, they can't prepare for them, and they can't warn Seigi or anyone else about them. So again, plot twist. That's the point of this, plot twists. Okay. Now, next in this scene, Izzy shows Seigi pictures of instances where the Void Maker went berserk. Okay, and it killed a bunch of people in experiments, and it took chunks out of their bodies. And she's pretty much showing him these pictures to let him know that the voids are incredibly difficult to control, and until he learns how to control them, he is not to use these voids without her permission. And he agrees to that because he's all about logic, and he doesn't like people using things when they don't understand the logic of them. So it only makes sense for him to not use the Void Maker if he himself doesn't understand the logic. He'd be a hypocrite if he did start using it, despite that, right? So he agrees relatively easily, actually. And instead, he's told to focus on his physical abilities because, as we've seen before, when a person enters Drive, their physical abilities are increased, and this increase is directly related to their base stats, so to speak. So if you increase your base stats, the power boost you get from your tattoo will be greater. All right. Izzy's example was the fastest person in the world is going to be the fastest sealed in the world as well. You know, the strongest person in the world is going to be the strongest sealed as well. So the power boost is directly related to your base stats, pretty much. All right. So he ends up going on a run. But before that, him and Toko are given these tattoo detectors. Essentially, they will alert the two of them whenever someone activates a tattoo in their proximity, and they will also then send their location to Izzy in time so that they can arrive as backup and help them out whenever is necessary. All right, now once Toko and Seigi leave, Todd tries to convince Izzy to send Seigi to the States because he doesn't believe that the two of them can protect him on their own. But Izzy knows that that's the smart thing to do. She knows that they can't protect him, but she's afraid of what will happen if he goes to the States. So she just asks to have some time to think about it because she's stuck between a rock and a hard place here. And we'll see that she's getting pushed some more by Lisa later on in the episode. But before this, we see Toko and Seigi. Toko is on her bike while Seigi runs. Toko said, this is where the cliche came in. Alright, this is where the cliche came in. Toko said some embarrassing things to Seigi that would let him know exactly how she feels, but he doesn't hear any of it, and it took all of her courage to say it the first time, so she doesn't have any left to say the second time when he can actually hear. Okay, so this is another cliche that I don't understand the point of. Though, to be fair, I will give them credit. A lot of shows will have the love interest beat up on the guy and do all these things and treat him like crap, and then be surprised later on when he doesn't like her. You know, like, dude, why would I like you if you're treating me like crap on a regular basis? You know, like, but then because it's anime, he ends up liking her later anyway. But I'm glad that they're not doing this and they're actually having her care about his well-being for once. For once, an anime girl actually cares about the well-being of her crush. Wow, this is so rare. This is so rare. Well, I mean, it's not shown in its seinen, but still, it's still rare. So I'm glad we're getting this here. All right, so I'm willing to look past this cliche because of that. All right, now the two of them during this entire scene, they're being watched by Laka and Mish. Okay, and they don't attack. I'm assuming just because they want to be careful. Because they screwed up the last time they attacked, so they want to make sure that doesn't happen again. They want to gather information and make sure that their next attack is a guaranteed success. Alright, so they're scouting pretty much. It's exactly what they're doing. But next we get this foreshadowing like I talked about with Mish. The only scene where you could possibly say that she was being written as sympathetic. One of the cats abandoned it. It abandons one of its own because it's too weak and they can't care for it anymore. And you can tell by the way it's animated that it really strikes a chord in Mish. So I think that she has this complex where she feels that if she fails one too many times, then Aryabhata will abandon her at some point, and she's afraid of that failure. And I think that it will happen eventually, and I think that that's what's going to lead her to change sides, because like I said before, lollies in anime rarely tend to stay on the evil side. They end up joining the good side like they do in Strike the Blood and Bungo Stray Dogs and a number of other series. Okay, so I'm predicting her. I'm predicting that she's going to change side. Okay, I'm saying this is like the second or third time I've said it. Okay, so it's there. It's there, okay? It's there out in the open. I'm going to say I told you so if it ends up being right. And if I'm not right, I'm going to try and make you forget that I ever said it in the first place, okay? But lastly, well, not really lastly, but kind of, we end up meeting Lisa. Okay, it turns out I was right about it. See, told you so. I was right about her being the next member of the tattoo retrieval force that we meet. But I was just wrong about the circumstances of it. I thought she was going to show up when, as a result of Izzy and Tom not reporting back to the U.S. But it turns out she was there already. She was already in Japan. So it makes me wonder how many other uh, tattoo users in the tattoo retrieval unit are currently stationed in Japan, in I guess different units. But I mean, it's a tattoo retrieval unit, but like different units inside the unit, like they just broke off into teams and went out. Um, so it makes me think who else is there besides Izzy, Tom, and Lisa. Um, but anyway, the real reason why she was there was to discuss missions. They want to target this guy Wiseman, but they can't, so they have to settle on another target who we don't actually learn of, but we'll probably learn in some later episode, maybe. And Lisa ends up questioning Izzy about why they were targeted by the Brahman and why there were two kids going in and out of their house. Okay. She played dumb about the attack, and she said that Seigi and Toko were just friends. Um, Lisa wasn't buying any of this. Right? She wasn't buying any of this, and she ends up in a response to this. She ends up saying, "Listen, Izzy, the U.S. is going to, because of what happened in Sin with the coup, the U.S. is sending more tattoo users in to help deal with Stan. So with the increased presence of tattoo users here, it's important that we share any and all information. That way we can maximize our strategy and get the best results. Okay, so if you have information, it's best that you tell it to us before it's too late. All right. So she knows Izzy's lying, and they're friends, so she doesn't want to like force her, but she's saying her like, listen, this is what needs to happen. So I don't want to force you, but it would be great if you would do this on your own and just tell us what's going on. All right. Now, while the two of them are discussing their targets, Locke and Mish get their next target. And it turns out that their deputy captain told them to prioritize the elimination of the other American forces before the elimination / capture of the triggerless tattoo, aka Seigi, Akatsuka Justice. Okay, a part of me wants to go get a clip of Space Patrol and Luco and the guy there saying justice, and then just add it in whenever I'm talking about Seigi. Part of me just wants to do that, but I don't feel like doing the editing, so instead I'll just settle for justice, which is my horrible impersonation of him, my horrible impression. But anyway, yeah, their next target is Lisa. Okay, so and we see in the preview that Mish does in fact, at least that's the way it comes off in the preview. It looks like Mish does in fact defeat Lisa, and then Izzy is going to have to avenge her. I don't know how Izzy is going to learn about this defeat, but Lisa is telling Izzy, I'm sorry. It looks like Izzy's going to have to avenge her. So I'm assuming she's not going to die. I don't think she'll die, but because that doesn't make sense. Why would they have her as such a prominent figure in the opening and the ending if she's just going to die after being in the show for one episode? That doesn't make sense, right? So, they also got some new weapons too. There was this really cool image, kind of weird because there was some Lolly fan service here, and I'm not a fan of Lolly fan service. I don't get what people like about it. I just can't. But it's like, but it's this image of Mish holding this new sword, and it's just really cool. It's just really cool. I wish she was wearing clothes when she did it, but it's still a really cool image nonetheless. So that was just really cool. All right, but yeah, there's that, and then also interesting side note is the fact that because that cat from before struck such a chord in Mish, she decided to take the cat home with her and take care of it. So it really did affect. I mean, she did threaten to kill it a couple times because she was tired of it making noise and running around. But still, the fact that she actually went to the trouble of taking it home, taping it up, and and washing and taking care of it means that it did strike quite the chord in her. All right, so I just figured that was worth mentioning. But that's the episode. Overall, I will give it a 7.5 out of 10. Um, I thought it was a decent. This was more of a transitional episode, more information than fighting and development. It was more like the resolution of the fights from last week's episode, and then and mostly just information and dialogue. So it was mostly just a transitional episode. So I'll give it a 7.5 out of 10, and that is that, you guys. Rate, comment, subscribe. Follow me on Twitter at BlacklistOTA, and I will see you guys next time.